Hello, except is my camera not working again? Sigh. Um, oh, hello everyone. Working on it. Eh, whatever. I guess my camera's not working today. Um, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the MuseScore Cafe for today, April, May 6th, 2020. And this is my regular in the latest installment in my series, the MuseScore Cafe, where I present some topic relating to MuseScore and music creation, and we chat about it, and I demonstrate some things. I am Mark Sabatella, the Director of Education for MuseScore. And and it's morning for me, and it's evening for other people, and middle of the night for a couple people. So, uh, hopefully, I think many people probably watching today were also around a couple weeks ago when we talked about creating a canon out of submissions from people. And you can see here, these are the submissions that I ended up getting. Actually, a few more over here on the next page. So it's a lot of music for me to assemble, but it's um, a good smattering of different things, and so I was really happy with the participation on this. And so originally I was thinking I would be I don't know that I would put the whole thing together and then just present it. But then as I started working on it, I'm like, no. I think it's going to be more valuable for people to actually see the process and also participate in it for that matter. So in doing this, it's probably just as well that I don't have my camera happening here, although I really don't know why it isn't, and that is bugging me at least a little bit. If I say headshot, do you see anything? You see nothing at all. No? Okay. So, yeah, whatever. Computer difficulties, just part of life. Um, if you could see, if my camera was working, I would be showing you that I printed out all of these. And I did that because, I love the fact that with a lot of things we can do things online and go paperless and all, and I love this. But there are some things where just having it on paper or something physical in front of you makes it easier. So in my case, what's happening here, as I started to put these together, is I realized it was hard for me to keep track of what I had used already, what I hadn't used, or if I remembered, oh, there's a melody that one of those scores had in it. Let me go find the tab that has that, and then copy and paste it. As I was trying to assemble all these melodies, because if there's 20. Let's see, there were 23 scores in there. One of them was just my example score, and one of them was someone who submitted sort of two different versions of theirs. So really there's 21 submissions, and most people submitted 4 melodies. I think one person only submitted 1, but that basically gives me 81 separate 4-bar melodies if I'm doing the math right. So keeping them all straight in my head is really hard, and and then if I want to figure out, oh, how does this melody work with that other melody, it's easier if I can see them together. And yes, I can use the split screen feature in MuseScore. In fact, I will show you that because many of you probably have never seen this feature. If I go to the View menu and then say Documents Side by Side or Documents Stacked, you pick whichever one maybe fits your screen better, and then you can see 2 of these things side by side. I think given I think the stacked view is going to make more sense, and I probably won't be needing the inspector much in what I'm doing. So this would allow you to see 2 melodies at once, which is kind of nice. Although realistically, I want to see 3 at once, right? I want to see 2 melodies of the individual submissions, and then I want to see my score, where I'm combining them all. So it's it's just a little bit to keep track of, and sometimes paper and pencil just is easier. I also, just because this is always worth mentioning, I always recommend, if you're trying to compose, don't compose into notation software. Don't compose into a sequencer. There's different philosophies on this. My personal philosophy is I have a much quicker connection to my instrument, the piano, or to my voice than I do to any notation software or any sequencer or anything else, such that the original ideas, I don't want to be slowed down by having to work a computer interface and then worry about if what came out is exactly how I wanted, or if I have to stop and edit it. I'm going to trust my brain and some pencil and paper a bit. I start getting stuff into MuseScore pretty early on because I am very familiar with it. But no, I'm definitely use the right tool for the job. So one of the things that I would do then is I'm gonna actually not use the split screen view because I might go back to it later, but I wanted you to see that is there and could be useful. The other thing that you may or may not know is there that is definitely going to be useful is I have all those 21 scores all saved into this folder. So I'm going to select them all, and I could actually unselect my part, which is in there somewhere. All right, and I now have all the scores, including my full score that I created, because I've decided I want to try to set this up for string quartet, at least at first. And it opened them all up, all in their own tabs. For better or for worse, that's how they are, and I can't, it's too many of them for me to see them all at once, so I actually am going to have to like scroll through the tabs, which is one of the things that convinced me printing this was going to be better. So let me just play you a couple of the examples here so we can hear one. This is just one I happen to end up on at random. Oops, let me stop that and start it again at the volume I usually run these on, which is 32. So that's two of the melodies. Now, I didn't specifically say that they should connect, like you should expect that you would play one melody and it would lead naturally into the second one. You could just write 4 independent melodies, but a lot of people did write them to connect, understandably, and it is kind of nice because then I can look at actually making them be adjacent in the final piece. So this was one of the samples, but yeah, there's just a ton of them. Most people started out with a relatively simple melody. So they started off with a simple melody and then worked towards more complex ones. Right? And so we had all sorts of different levels of complexity there. One of the most interesting ones I have to show you, Bernard's, I mentioned him last time. He actually did submit one, and of the ones he submitted, he actually submitted one that was in 2 voices already. I'm going to actually play his next 2 because they're all really good. Here we go. Totally Bach, right? Anyhow, that's one of the probably more involved ones that I got. So yeah, they're kind of all over the map in terms of their complexity, which is great because it gives me a lot to work with in putting them together. So what I have done then is I created that score, and I'm going to move this one off all the way to the left. Actually, would I be better off with it on the right? Maybe. I don't know. it just has to do with how this thing has to scroll because I can't fit them all on at once. This is my empty score. I guess I don't really need that. Okay, so yeah, Bernard's a great guy. I wanted to like think about, like, I went through and played them through and listened to them. I don't have them all memorized or anything like that, but I wanted to sort of get basically familiar with them. And I think that one that I played a little bit ago was actually the one. I mean, if you think about the Pachelbel canon, I might as well have that one loaded because we're probably going to want to compare to that every once in a while. It starts off with this melody, which is the simplest thing in the world. Right, that is like the world's simplest melody. No one actually wrote anything quite that simple, which actually surprised me. But that's fine. I didn't particularly need anyone to have done that. But I think I'm looking. So I'm looking at my paper copies and trying to remind myself of what's what. But I think that, whoops, I had a second ago. I think that this melody here that we listened to a little bit ago, to me, of everything I heard, that one seemed like kind of the strongest opening statement. There was one other that felt at least as simple and strong. Actually, there's several. There's several good ones, and there's lots of good ones. But as far as what feels like an opening statement, and I don't even know how to explain what feels like an opening statement and what doesn't. But let me just play you the one other one, and then y'all can maybe help me choose. So, between that one, Pentatonus, versus the one we heard a moment ago, the one from Ad. I don't know how to pronounce anyone's names, so I apologize, but... So either one of those strike me as really good possible opening themes, but the third one that I would have thought about is this other one from J. Moses, and you can see the fact I love that I had this on paper so I could find it, and I still have to find J. Moses's tab here because that's too many open tabs for me to see at once. J. Moses. J. Moses. Come on, J. Got to be in here somewhere. There we go. His first melody is also a good, strong opening melody. So, between those three, we had Ad, we had Pentatonus, and we had J. Moses's. I will take a vote. Katrina, we had a lot of nice simple melodies. And let me grab yours, Katrina, and see. I remember thinking, oh yeah, yours. You've got let's hear Katrina's also. See, Katrina. All right. So the melody number 2 was the simplest one, right? So I love the simplicity of this compared to the Pachelbel one. This feels more like it's going to make a great accompaniment to something more complex. This one here is definitely another one that has the appropriate level of simplicity. So there's some, yeah, there's really good stuff in all of these. And I love that people are working the ornamentation and stuff in there, because I tend not to think about that kind of stuff. I love this melody. This is sweet. So that's going to be nicely prominently featured in there somewhere. I will definitely take some suggestions here if people of the ones that I played have particular favorites or particular ones that you think make the appropriate opening theme. And one of the things that I'm looking for is something that sort of grabs you right away, but doesn't give everything away. You know, it doesn't, like, because there's lots of really interesting ones in here that would be, you know, will be loving to hear a minute into the piece. But as far as figuring out what to start with, yeah, I could go many different ways on it. In the end, it doesn't matter that much. So, unfortunately, first one, if by that one you mean the one that I played first as far as saying it was a possibility, which is this one, add. Now, here it is. So, this is personally the one I would be leaning towards to open with. It sets up a number of things that I like. It has a good simplicity and yet some really interesting things about it. Like right off the bat, we're getting an interesting non-chord tone happening. So this is probably my first choice to open with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this guy, and then I'm going to paste it. So at this point, maybe I will do the split screen thing. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the stacked, and then, good, in the bottom half of my screen now, I have my score. So I can copy that into my score. And I'm going to delete all the chord symbols and Roman numerals later, so I'm not going to worry about them. I can use the filter here. Oh, I'm going to show you that because, you know, part of what I want to be showing you are our features here. I can use the filter here to say, don't copy chord symbols or other text. And now, when I select these 4 bars, oh yeah, actually it feels like yeah, there we go. All right, so now when I select, what happens is the filter is sort of separate for each score, and so even if I exclude them from this score, so I notice I've unchecked chord symbols and other text, and now you can see that they aren't highlighted, they're black. So now when I copy and paste into here, I don't get those chord symbols. And that's great, but then if I go to take someone else's melody and decide I want to copy that, they have that score has its own selection filter. So to me, it was easier, it was better not to even do that at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo some of this stuff here that I just did. Oh, okay, whatever. I need to find adds again. And I'm just going to go ahead and just leave everything in place because then it's consistent and I can fix it all later. So that's going to go there. And because it's a canon, I know it's also going to go here. So every time I paste something, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it pretty much right away because what I want to do is now pick a melody to fit above, because this is now going to be a harmony part, and the first violin part is now going to take up a new melody while this comes in. And part of the trick here, and was actually the thing that totally convinced me I needed to print all these things out, I want to find a melody that works especially well with this melody. And when I say works especially well, I mean they're all fitting the same chord progression, but yeah, the tabs, yeah, it is it is it is a little bit overwhelming, but it's fun. So what the heck. Yeah, it's going to be, it will be what it is, and I'll demonstrate some stuff. I'll work up some good strategies, and then we'll probably hang up and I'll plow through it myself. Okay, so I've got this thing, the original melody here, and then I've got it harmonized in the second violin. And what I want to do is I want to find, because that's what's going to happen. Basically, as a rule, in doing this canon, we're going to have a part, and then we know that part is going to continue here, and then whatever melody I add. In fact, I'm going to switch this guy to continuous view. There we go. So whatever I add in the next 4 bars in the first violin, I will also copy to the second part. And that's essentially what you're going to happen in doing a canon. Now, Bernard made a good point in the group discussion there on MuseScore.com that really just cutting and pasting like this isn't all there is to putting together a canon. I mean, it does technically qualify as a canon if that's all I do. But someone who's really writing a canon wouldn't just be cutting and pasting like this. They would actually be constructing a new melody here designed to fit this melody well in terms of how the intervals all line up. Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm assembling, right? I'm not writing, I'm assembling. But I can try my best to choose, of all the 81 melodies that I have, or 80 that are left. Oh, and that's the other thing I want to do. I want to like mark off that I've used that melody there, so I can sort of keep track of what I've used and what I haven't used. And so got my pencil, because if you're going to have paper, you're going to have pencil. And I'm just going to put a little, actually I'll just put a check mark by it to say that I've used it. I used it in measure 1. If I move it around later, then I'll have to change that, but that's okay. So what I'm looking for, though, is a melody whose intervals are kind of compatible with this. Like, this starts with a G. I would love the melody that I start with for the next one to start with an E, because the G and the E harmonize nicely together. So let me tell you what I'm looking for. I don't want too many unisons. I don't want, like, the melody that I put here to also have a G there, also have an E here. I'm looking at the note where the chord changes. Or in some cases, like for the G chord, our original melody here has an E, which is not a chord tone. So I'm going to be more about trying to avoid that D. I want to avoid doubling, because I want it to harmonize, right? I don't want it to double. So I'm going to look for melodies that avoid all the notes that this one used, right? So that's, if I were writing my own melody, I would just write it. But what I'm going to do in selecting melodies is try to select ones that use different pitches. Now, the thing that I have going for me here is look at the range of this melody. It's all between G and C here. If I find another melody that is more below, from maybe the E, bottom line E up to the C, that hangs out in that area more, then they're more likely not to double. They might double at the octave if I have that E and that E there, or that F and that F there. But in any case, that is what I'm gonna be on the lookout for. So I want to find a melody that is still relatively similar, but avoids the doubling. I'm also going to avoid, if I can, too many perfect fifths. In other words, on this G, I probably am not going to want to start with a C. I want to start with an E. Because the interval of a third between between the melody note and the harmony note, or the two melodies, I should really say, intervals of a third and intervals of a sixth are the safe, consonant, really nice intervals. Fifths are okay. There's nothing wrong with fifths. There's nothing wrong with octaves. But too many of them sounds hollow, and it leads to this thing that you learn to avoid when doing this for real, of parallel fifths and parallel octaves, which are considered especially bad. So let's catch up on some comments. Do I have a course for composing? So I don't have a specific course for composing. I will say that my music theory course, so go to, I'll give you the link in the chat. I gotta find the chat, and then you can go browse around at your leisure. GPS school.masteringmusescore.com. Okay, so the on the site you'll find the resources that I have. I have a course I'm calling Basic Music Theory, that for the time being is free. I'm offering it for free during the whole coronavirus pandemic weirdness that's going on, to try to make it available especially for schools. And then it'll become yeah, and you have the option of helping me out by paying for it now if you want. So that is the Basic Theory. Just covers real basics like what do these chords even mean? What does it mean to say 1, 4, 5? What is a G chord? What is an A minor chord? All those sorts of basic things is what's covered. And it really starts with, well, what is this thing? What is this black oval here with a stick coming off of it? I mean, I'll start from there and work you up into knowing what an A minor chord is and why it's called 6, and why we use a Roman numeral. So Basic Theory gets you through that much. But then some of this other things I'm talking about, like knowing about thirds and sixths being especially consonant intervals, and fifths and octaves being okay, but a little, I touch on that, but I only bring you to the very edge of starting to deal with that in that course. So the next level of information that you'd want to know is about how to apply it, and I don't have a specific course for it yet. I'm in the process of developing some. What I do have is something I'm calling the Music Masterclass, where I'm presenting lessons on a regular basis on sort of a variety of different topics, and then people can upload their own music, and I can critique it. And so it's sort of a small group of people, a few dozen, and only a couple people so far. I've only been doing this a couple months, but I'm planning on pushing this more. And it's gonna be like a class, like you're actually going to school and sitting in a class, and you got other people. I'm doing some lessons live. I'm doing some as pre-recorded, and so forth. So anyhow, that's end of commercial there. So why is A minor colliding with the bar line? Oh, that's a good question. Because we don't have any code to not do that. That's the best answer. So no, it's not actually. I don't think it's about continuous view. I think if I switch to page view, oh, I have to be down here. It gets confusing when I've got two things open. I think the same is going to be true in, well, it's almost true, but I can't guarantee, like if I put a chord symbol on this, let's find out, shall we? Yeah, it'll gladly overlap bar lines if you do that. That's one thing that we don't do, because sometimes you want the chord symbol to overlap the bar line, and certainly if the bar line isn't drawn through the staves, like here, it would be perfectly okay on this G to have G7 flat 9 and have it bleed over the bar line. That would be totally fine. You wouldn't want it to add a bunch of space. So basically, that most of the automatic collision detection and avoidance we do is really within a measure, not between measures. And so certain things like that we miss. So anyhow, that's the answer to that. And realistically, those chord symbols aren't going to stay there. So it's not going to be an issue. And also, realistically, if I were ever to print this score, you saw how when I changed to page view, the measures just spaced out a little differently because it tries to fill out the page. So it tends to not be as much of an issue in practice. All right, so I'm going to go back to what I was saying of looking for melodies in my collection that start with an E and look like they're harmonizing in interesting ways with the other thing. So let me find J. Moses' melody. One of the other melodies that I said was a good opening melody also turns out to harmonize pretty well with it. So, oh, was it this one? Oh gosh, I'm already confusing myself. But that's okay, I'm always confused. So let's listen to this. I'm going to paste that guy in, and I'll hear these two together. By the way, accompaniment-wise on here, I decided instead of having piano and cello, I wanted to use viola and cello. I'm going to create what's called a double canon here because it's going to allow me to pack more stuff in and not have to worry so much about the doubling issues. So my accompaniment right now is just harpsichord, just on the roots. And so I'm going to just press R and copy that sucker a whole bunch of times. Okay, I'm probably at the end. All right, so let's listen to what we have here. So we know they're going to work together to some extent because they're based on the same chord progression. But what I really get here is I get the E and the G together. I get the A here, which is a chord tone, and the third, which is always the best chord tone. We think of the root as like, oh, I should use the root a lot. No, the root is not an interesting melody note. It can be. I don't say never play roots. But we know the bass voice is going to have that root. If the melody also has the root, then that's a guaranteed bit of doubling right there that we don't necessarily want. And the roots are usually moving along the circle of fifths, right? From C to F is along the circle of fifths. All right, F to G to A is all step, but A to D to G to C is all circle of fifths, and so is going to the G there. So I try to not focus so much on roots. Knowing that the bass has the root, I would much rather focus on a third as a melody note where possible. And again, if the chords are following the circle of fifths, the thirds are going to be jumping around by fifths, so you can't overdo the thirds. But that's the note I might lean on a little harder than any other note. So when I'm in a place like this, where I have E as a non-chord tone, and D, for that matter, as a non-chord tone over that F, the A makes me really happy. So I love having the E here. It gives me the third here, the interval of a third, as well as the third of the chord. I love the A here because it's the third of the chord. The interval's fine. It's a fourth, it's a fifth, whatever. So I like that. I like the way that first measure works. Now, in the second measure, listen to what happens. I talked about doubling. Listen to that D. And listen and tell me if it doesn't jump out a little for you. It does for me. I'll live with it. But that's the sort of thing I want to avoid too much of. Did you hear how it just disappeared? Harmony just disappeared for one beat. For one beat, it was like, oh, we're not in harmony. There's also this weird thing that happens here where I have a G and then the other G comes to join it. So for like half a beat, the harmony disappears. Half a beat, the harmony disappears here, and for one beat, the harmony disappears there, and then it disappears again for a beat right there. So there's a little too much disappearing of harmony. Disappears. So I can definitely live with that. Oh, well, yeah, I could definitely change the sound, but that's cheating. It's not just about audio artifacts and stuff. It really is from a musical standpoint. If I can avoid that kind of doubling, I will. So I picked this one really only because of the starting E, but now I look at it and I say, oh, the A was really great. And then I want to quickly thumb through all of my melodies and see if I can find something else that starts on an E and gives me the A there, but doesn't. Ooh, one of Ad's other melodies does. Check that out. Oh my gosh, that one might actually be kind of perfect. So I wouldn't necessarily try to always use people's own melodies together, and I don't know that I'm going to get to use all of everyone's melodies. I'm going to use at least one melody from everyone. So I'm going to come here, delete this, and now I'm going to paste in this melody. So check this out. I get my E here, I get my A there that I already knew I liked. Here I have the D, but I already leave that D by the time I get here, and so I'm okay. And now over the A minor, I have an E, which harmonizes nicely with it. I don't know if he did this on purpose, or he or she. I don't want to assume anything. But check this out. This D harmonizes with that F. This B harmonizes with that. The E. I mean, this is perfect. I couldn't have written this any better. And I know I like that melody too. So I feel like this is a really good choice. So as I hear it, I'm hearing a couple just small little things that are, you know, is not as perfect as I thought. Let's see. So right there, ding, ding, this G doubles here for a little bit of time. Right here, the dissonance there is, you know, it's not, I don't care. I'm okay with dissonance. And it resolves by step, but it does expose for like a 16th note, a little doubling. So that is a very, very minor, not minor like minor key, but minor as in not a big deal. But these are the sorts of decisions that I do want to look at. So I'm going to quickly thumb through what I have left here. Okay, so one person, oh, Bartok Forever. So it is funny. He called his screen name is Bartok Forever, but let's listen to some of the music. So it's written in tenor clef, which I don't read very well, so I'm going to change that to bass clef for my own purposes. So, Bartok Forever, yes, but you know this is jazz, right? Which is great. That's my home turf. But it just was interesting because I was expecting to hear more Bartokian stuff. So this is tenor clef, which I can with some effort read. So I can look at this and say, okay, I know where my C is. C is this line here. It's right in the crack there, and so that is an E, and then it's going up to an F. So it's not exactly the thing I want. But what I'm going to do for my own purposes is just change that. Anything in tenor clef can also be read in treble clef an octave lower and still be, is that the right clef? Is that the one I meant? Or did I mean this one? No, I meant this one. If it's in tenor clef, I could either put it here or I could just put it in bass clef. I'm just going to look at this. Can I read this? I can read this just fine. So I'm going to put it here. The other place I could put it is bass clef, and now it's mostly above the staff, and that's not making me happy. If I just put a regular treble clef on it, then some of it's pretty high. Wait a minute, it wasn't that high before, was it? Oh, that's because I switched. This was Bartok's. So regular treble clef, yeah, that's fine. So I'm just going to leave it there in treble clef. But anyhow, that doesn't give me my A, but it did give me that. So I'm looking now that I can see it in the clef that I care about. Oh, here's one that's got an A. Yeah, just for grins, I'm going to try this one. It might be too early for all those 16th notes. I don't mean too early in the morning. I mean too early in the piece. But let's hear. So I love how it lines up, but I do think it's a little too early for the 16th notes for me. But it does line up quite well. I get my A here, which is what I wanted there. I do have this D, this dissonance there, further dissonance with the F, and then more dissonance here. This is the most problematic 2 beats here, is the way. Nothing about that said a G chord. But then this double note here is left very quickly, and that's fine. And again here there's a double note that's left very quickly. So yeah, it works out okay, but not as well as the other one. Let me keep going through my stack just to see if I see any other. Oh, one of BSG's melodies. Okay, gotta try BSG's melody. Starts off, I'm looking for the E and the A. I'm just zeroing in on the E and the A right now. Again, this might be too early for this, but you know, I say that, but it's not a law. Here we go. Beautiful. It works. It works nicely. And again, of course, there's going to be some doubled notes and things. So first measure works out beautifully. Here, I have the C there, but it's only for a little bit. I land on the F, but then this voice moves. It works out fine. But again, it's just a little too early for that kind of activity to me, because I'm trying to control the overall structure of this piece, so that they I don't know, the whole piece develops at a nice rate where it feels like it's starting simpler and getting more complex, which is certainly the lesson that we learned from Mr. Pachelbel when we look at his piece that we start with here. It starts off just with the quarter notes, but then, gradually over time, in fact, let me switch it to continuous view. Starts off with just the quarter notes, then we have eighth notes, then we have sixteenths, but it's just sixteenths in one voice. Then, of course, then the sixteenths in the other voice join, so it's sixteenths in both voices. But then when one voice continues in sixteenths, the other one simplifies. And then now, for the first time in the entire piece, they actually kind of come together rhythmically, and then for a little lull in the action. But meanwhile, there's a third voice that's still doing sixteenth notes, right? So it's very well kind of constructed from this perspective of thinking through the pacing. And to me, that's definitely very important. So I am just doing a quick hunt, and so I found another one. I'm going to show you Decadici. Another one that starts off with my Ine. I figure if I start off with harmonies I like, I'm more willing to forgive unusual doublings and things later. His fourth melody here has that feature that I wanted of starting with an E and an A, but it's in triplets. There's several people who wrote sections in triplets. I want to bring them together so they line up nicely. That worked so beautifully. I'm almost ready to say, no, I don't care about whether it's triplets already, because it works so well. So I'm going to hold that one aside and keep that with J. Moses's, because they're both really strong candidates. And then just continue hunting through for melodies that have the appropriate level of simplicity, the appropriate level of C's and A's. Hey, that's just jumpy too much for this purpose. Yeah, so I think, here's another one that's going to possibly be a candidate, Seb Piron. So yeah, I am very happy that I printed these things out. So check out this melody here. Let's see what we think about this one. Actually, before I do, I'm going to listen to... Nice simplicity, right? That's one that I'm still leaning towards. But here's this other one here. This one has the same E and A to start with that makes me think, okay, well, let's listen to the rest. From a pacing perspective, I'm still happier with what I had before. But that works out really well. So, I mean, at some point, I'm going to stop being obsessive about these details, because right now this is so exposed. It's the first bit of harmony that we hear in the piece. We start off just hearing a single line over the root. So I'm very focused on making sure that that initial entrance really makes me happy from a perspective of how the harmonies work together. And after that, there's going to be enough going on that I will not be at all tempted to obsess about those sorts of details. I'll really be able to play this with a dartboard. I mean, like literally, I could just throw darts at I could throw all these pieces of paper on a wall and throw darts at them and glue them together in that order, and it would work out. So I think I've now gone through in my stack of things, all the different things, and convinced myself that I now have my beginning. So that's a lot of work just to have a beginning, but you get to see the process. And now if I'm going to take this piece, so I'm going to continue my idea that I'm going to check this off and say this is Jack, and that comes in at bar 5. Cool. And then I'm going to copy that down here. And now I do the same process of looking for something that harmonizes with it. Now the question is, do I make this be a 3-voice canon, or do I create what's called a double canon? I'm going to do both. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to let this voice double down here, but maybe down an octave. That's okay. So that, and that's a really good thing in itself. If you have 2 voices doing the same 2 things, like, what am I saying? I got, here I have the top melody in violin 1. This melody is lower in violin 2. It happened to work out that way. We might not have gotten lucky, but it doesn't matter. In this case, the top melody really is above the second melody in all places. They don't cross, that is another thing you should worry about a little bit. But all I had to do here is take that top melody down an octave, and now it's below that same melody that was above this melody. No, I don't know. It's just differently below. Whatever. I can change octaves of things. I could drop this melody down an octave and put this one above. You can change octaves so that the roles of the 2 melodies change. But here I had to drop the viola just to even make it like conveniently in a viola range. Right? And so now I can bring in a 3rd melody. So what I've done is I'm creating a 3-voice canon. I've got violin 1, violin 2, and viola. And I will very often drop things an octave to be in the viola voice. I could make it be a 3rd violin, but whatever. I wouldn't mind if this was actually playable by a string quartet. I should mention that when I work with a string quartet, the viola player I work with actually plays a 5-string violin. So she can play violin parts or viola parts, which is kind of cool. But I try to, I'm just enough of a purist, whatever, that I try to write, things that are actually viola-ish for her. So then I need a 3rd melody. And again, viola, technically you're supposed to write in that clef there, the alto clef. I don't read alto clef very well. So I'm just going to tell MuseScore, you know what? I'm just going to let it have ledger lines. So what I could do is use the same clef. I'm going to write it as treble clef. Oh, did I write that in the wrong octave? I always forget which way these stupid clefs work. They're not stupid. They're fine clefs. Nope, I had it right the first time. Okay, so middle C is the middle line on alto clef. Middle C is just one thing above it. So, but this is above middle C. I'm obviously thinking basically, maybe that's what I meant. Thank you. Let's see. This guy. Bass clef. Yeah, there we go. That's what we're talking. So that, yeah, I wanted it to only move a little bit, because that note was just above middle C, but it was towards the top of the staff. In alto clef, right, that note is above middle C, but it's towards the top of the, it's a little above middle C, and it's towards the top of the staff. And that bass clef gives me that same idea. So I can read this now. It's a G. So now I'm perfectly happy with melodies that start on C, because I've got my E and my G. And there's tons of melodies that start with C. So I don't have to be anywhere near as picky about things. And again, now that I've established some harmony, now I'm ready for motion. And so now the most important thing that I might want is to establish some form of motor rhythm. And so I'm probably interested at this point in bringing in one of the lines that's just a steady stream of eighth notes. And there's several people who wrote melodies that are, largely steady streams of eighth notes. And so I am just looking at what I've got, and I see two good things, but one of them is from someone I'm already using, or J. Moses's. So I'm going to pick this one from Anesh. Anesh, I think that's how you pronounce Anes. The guy who produced my first CD is Atesh, Ates. Turkey, this looks more not Turkish, but some Eastern European. So this little melody here starts on C and is a nice steady stream of eighth notes, right? So I feel like this is likely to be a good choice here. Now, octave-wise, look at this G here and then that there. That's not a good thing. I might have to take this whole thing up, or I might have to adjust it for that reason. But let's hear what we have anyhow. I'm going to lead into it. All right, so I didn't say originally that I was going to give myself the right to do this, but what the heck, I am. What if I just took this thing and took it up an octave? I don't want to mess with people's melodies a whole lot. So anyhow, I'm just a little concerned with this big leap. It's not like you can't play that on violin. It just feels a little bit awkward. There's other melodies. Oh, Katrina, you're number 3 actually. Let's hear what that one sounds like. Katrina number 3. Katrina number 3. And again, I'm going to get into it. How about that? Yeah, actually, let's listen to Katrina's melody because I want to show you what I really loved. That part. So yeah, what I liked about it here was, well, I like the little ornament, but this figure, this is called an appoggiatura. No, it's not called an appoggiatura. It's an accented passing tone is what it's technically called. This F is not a chord tone. The E is the chord tone, but this is the one that's on the beat. But then the E gets its own form of accent. It's a syncopation. It's the last note of the phrase, but it's on an offbeat. That's, it appeals to my jazz heart, but it doesn't feel jazzy. It just feels cool. It just sounds really nice. So it's a little unfortunate to lose that. So I was going to say I'm afraid of losing it in here, but luckily the other two voices just have half notes, so I don't lose it. That E doubles this E, but that's okay. Whoops. At this point I'm not as worried about doubling because I've got another chord tone. This is I guess a C in the viola, and the bass note has got the A, so I feel like I've got the full chord, and so that ends up working out really nicely there. So I'm going to just go with that one. I'm going to mark that on the thing. Katrina number 3. And that was measure 9. So at this point, I've spent a whole lot of time talking about process and juggling pieces of paper, and I've only written 3 bits of melody. And I said there's 80 of these things, 81 of them technically. I'm not going to use all 81 of them. I will maybe say I'm going to pick 2 from everyone, so I have about basically 40. And then, but I've got 3 of them done, and once I've got it started, then it's much simpler, because then I can just more randomly pick things, and because I obsess so much about that first 2. But let's hear it from the beginning and see what this all sounds like. So I like it. One of the things I might do at the beginning is if this were really in the style, I mean, like really being played by a Renaissance or an early Baroque ensemble in the day, the harpsichord part wouldn't have just been written out like this. Well, it would have actually been written out exactly like that, but using figured bass, not Roman numerals. So figured bass is a system where you write out the roots of the chords, or you write out, if you want it to be an inversion, which I didn't use any inversions here. So actually, you wouldn't need any of these Roman numerals here. You just have the roots written out. And then the harpsichordist basically treats this like a jazz pianist would now. Oh, I know what chord that is. I'm going to create my own accompaniment. So a harpsichordist in a Renaissance or Baroque ensemble would just be looking at a bass clef staff that just has roots or occasional inversions notated, and then they fill in the chord and other rhythm. So they might plug in I'm thinking like I need to think as a bassist. I mean, not as a bassist. As a harpsichordist. All right, so we'll listen to the beginning here now. Here we go. Right, so that's the sort of thing a harpsichordist would do, fill that thing in. But I don't know, style, because I'm not a harpsichordist. I'm not a Baroque harpsichordist. I'm a jazz pianist or a classical composer or any of the number of things. And I know how to write music in this style, but I don't have a feel for back in the Renaissance if a harpsichordist would have played that busily. My modern perspective is, as much as I like that sound of that steady stream of eighth notes with that simple melody on top, I also like how Pachelbel-Cannon starts out simply, and since that is kind of our model, I think I am going to let it be that simple. But, I might write out just some simple I might just write out a very simple thing for the harpsichord to do in its right hand. So, I don't know. Or I might write quarter notes. I don't know. I'll have to decide. But I'm not going to worry about that, because after the first 4 bars, the harpsichordists, we don't need them anymore, because we're going to have more than enough harmony happening here. But it does at least give us roots in a reliable place. It's not like we need them. And the harpsichordist in a Baroque ensemble or Renaissance ensemble is supposed to take that into consideration and decide, how much accompaniment do I really need here? Is there more than enough? So for me as a jazz pianist, again, my inclination is the denser everyone else gets, the less I play, because I'm just going to be in the way. I can't go back in time and tell you if that's what a Renaissance harpsichordist would have done, or organist. Bernard probably could. I tell us that, and probably will once I post this. So I look forward to his input. So anyhow, I did mention, though, the double canon idea, and I just want to tell you what that is about, because it is pretty cool. What the double canon idea is about is the idea that maybe, instead of bringing in a third voice here, so I'm just going to skip ahead for a second. I'm going to take these 2 voices here and just skip ahead to another spot in the piece where it's at the beginning, right here. And I have, well, actually, it's easier to do a different way. What I could do here is, instead of bringing in the viola with our original melody, I could bring it in with a different melody. So this was what? This is the original melody, so I know what that is. Okay. I can just delete it. I could bring in a totally other melody here, and it doesn't really matter which one I pick for this purpose, so I'm just going to randomly pick one here. And so I'm picking Clayton's melody here, and I bring it in here, and then I start another canon. Like, I totally ignore, if I'm creating a double canon, I would totally ignore the top two lines. Not really, but more or less. And now start a new canon here. I've got a voice here, and then another, and then it imitates here, down an octave. And then I figure out some other melody to put here, which could be some other totally other melody, like this one. And that would be the melody that this continues with. So in other words, I have two canons going on at once. I had the first canon between the top voices, and then another canon going between the next two voices. So that's what's called a double canon. And I definitely had the thought of doing that, because that lets you get in twice as much new material. You can bring in new material faster that way. So I want to continue. I'm just kind of randomly picking some melodies now. Who haven't I used yet? Yeah. I'm going to try this one here. So what do I have now? I have, let's trace what's actually happening here. Let me go back to full size. We have our first melody, and then it comes down to this voice. Meanwhile, the first voice continues, and then this voice, and then, looks like I started my canon on the wrong measure, but that's, I don't know what the heck I did. Yeah, I did. That's okay. I messed it up. That I will fix it. Undo is my friend. But so this is a canon here. So this has a melody, and then this guy has the melody, and then no, this is right. I'm just confusing myself. So we have a melody here, then it's repeated here. This, we have a melody here, and then it's repeated 4 bars later here. So the top two voices are playing Follow the Leader like that, but then so do the next two. So now in the viola part, I'm bringing in a totally different melody. The top two voices never got this melody. It's a new melody I'm bringing in the viola, but then I'm letting the viola and the cello form a canon. I've got the viola part there, and then the cello part down here. So let's hear what this sounds like now. Again, I gave no thought at all to what I was picking. I just picked some stuff. But let's hear how it all fits together. Here comes the second canon joining them. So at that point, it's pretty dense, right? I don't want that dense that fast. So I said I want to do a double canon, but I'm not going to bring the double canon that early. I might just have 2 voices for a while, and then bring in a third voice at some point as part of the original canon, and then eventually turn it into a double canon or something. So that is all the sort of stuff I want to think about. But so I feel like I've gone on long enough. You've seen the general ideas. This is going to be a lot more of the same. It's going to be me juggling through all these pieces of paper, putting check marks on things, copying, pasting things in. I spent a lot of time really obsessing about the beginning, but after that, the texture is so thick. it's not going to be so much about the detail. It's going to be more about the big picture of how I put it all together. So it's going to come together more quickly. So that's what I want to be showing you here. And so last week I talked about MuseScore 3.5 and said, oh yeah, the alpha was going to be released that day. Number of glitches happened. Long story. It's been an interesting story for MuseScore 3.5, but all the features that I mentioned are still coming. I think maybe today. We tried to release the alpha and then something went wrong, but I think we're retrying today. But in any case, it's still happening. It's not like MuseScore 3.5 isn't happening. It's just for right now, the nightly build that I told you about is still the way to get at it. Next week maybe. Well, I'll definitely have this done before next week, and I'll probably play it so we can we can all listen to it together. But then go on and talk about something else. So anyhow, thanks everyone who submitted music for this. It was a fun project to have kind of put together, and I'm still putting together. But it's I'm having fun doing it, and hope y'all enjoyed thinking about it as well. So I'm going to sign off then, and I will see you next week, and we'll have a finished canon by then for sure. Okay, see ya. Bye.